Good afternoon, everyone. Glad you can be here with us. We've got a great presentation today. Just want to cover a couple things, just a little bit of housekeeping before we get rolling here. We are using our webinar system. Therefore, you have the option or do not have the option to turn on your camera or your audio today. You will be able to see the speakers and any presentations that we're using. For the best viewing experience, go to the top of your screen and select View Everyone. And then you can see everybody, and you can also see our sponsors. Also, on the lower right-hand corner of each box, you can either enlarge or shrink that screen so you can get it to all fit in within your system. We will accept write-in questions today. So if you take a look at the right-hand side of your screen, should be on the right-hand side, there's a menu bar. On that menu, you can select the questions tab, and you can write in your questions. I'll be watching those during the program. We'll do our best to get to all the questions. If we do not have an answer or we do not get to your question, we'll work with our guests today to get them answered through some follow-up. So I want to bring forth our sponsors today and thank them. We have Digitel Internet Broadcasting, Foricon, and the law offices of Sheila Starkey and Hahn. We have a quick little 30-second read or 15-second read for each of them. They each sent us a note, a little bit about their business. So today's broadcast, again, is sponsored by Digitel Inc., a leader in live streaming and virtual meeting production. Located in Jamestown, New York, Digitel serves over 150 of the world's leading organizations and associations across the globe. If you're looking to work for one of the most exciting companies in Western New York, Digitel is always looking for the best and the brightest in Chautauqua County. So send your resume to workfordigitel@digitelinc.com. Our other sponsor, as I mentioned, is Foricon. Foricon is a local professional consulting forestry firm that's been serving the needs of Western New York and Northwestern Pennsylvania since 1954. From small woodlots to expansive forest land investments, Foricon foresters can help landowners accomplish their forestry needs. For timber sales, management plans, appraisals, or selling vacant real estate, Foricon is your one-stop consulting firm. So call 716-664-5602 or visit Foricon online at foriconinc.com. And again, our other sponsor, a very important sponsor, the law offices of Sheila Starkey and Hahn. They urge you to support our small local businesses. Many local restaurants quickly turn to takeout service only, ramping up their business models to provide good service in new ways. You can find that list at chqbuylocal.com, which by the way is housed on the Chamber of Commerce website. Again, that's chqbuylocal.com. The energy and creativity of our local business community has been exemplary during New York on Pause, and we salute them. So again, thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to, and we welcome Diego Sirianni. Diego, great to have you here with us today, representing Empire State Development. Diego has been a good friend to Allegheny, Cattaraugus, and Chautauqua counties. His official title is Program Specialist 2, but really he works as a senior project manager on many projects and initiatives in the southern tier portion of Western New York, and has been a very helpful and valuable resource to many of our organizations here in the southern tier. Diego has been with Empire State Development now for 12 years, and his prior experience, he worked at Kaleida as a Six Sigma black belt in performance improvement, and then prior to that, he worked for New York State Electric and Gas. Diego, we're glad to have you here, and thank you for all you do for us here in Western New York. We really appreciate your efforts.
You're very welcome. Always happy to help. Just so you know, I volunteered for the position in the Southern Tier.
Yeah.
When I work with NISTIG, I got to know you folks a little bit, and I really like it. Done everything short of moving down there, and that might still happen.
Yeah, we'll keep working on that.
Yeah. So we were going to talk about the New York Forward Loan Program a little bit, and then maybe the phase 2 of
yes.
the reopening of New York here. So I don't know if you wanted to go back and forth. The New York Forward Loan Program is one of the newest programs that we started with New York. We're going to have loans available to New York State headquartered small businesses. That's businesses with fewer than 20 employees and revenues of less than $3 million a year, and for landlords with fewer than 50 units and nonprofits. The maximum amount of the loan is going to be $100,000 or the best 3-month average revenues in 2019 or the first quarter of 2020, whichever is less. Right now, we know 8% of the funds, $100 million is being dedicated to this program. So we're talking about $8 million is going to be dedicated to Western New York. The interest rate for these loans is going to be 3% and 2% for nonprofits. The time frame is 60 months, and the first year is going to be payments of interest only to loanees. This is only available to companies who have not received PPP or EIDL loans from SBA, and that's only if you've actually received the funds in that case. CDIC is going to be administering the loans. You should apply for an invitation, basically. You're applying to be considered, and then you'll get returned if you're eligible from one of the CDICs that is most applicable to your line of work. There's the website's very thorough. All this information is on there. A very lengthy question and answer section that I think should cover any of your specific questions.
So Diego, this is a really small business focused loan. I mean, this is really trying to fill a niche for those small businesses that maybe missed out on PPP or maybe some of the other opportunities. I mean, this is really targeted at those small businesses, correct?
Yeah, that's the absolute focus of this, and there's no real. The only thing you really can't do with these funds is pay down other loans. Other than that, you can use it for working capital. You can use it for capital investment. I think that the focus is for any kind of investments you need to deal with the COVID crisis. So I think it's, for a change, there's something out there for very small businesses that we can provide. And there's a lot of great institutions, Apple Bank, BNB Bank, Evans, M&T, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, the Wilson Foundation, together with New York State, are acting to fund these loans at this point.
So will the loan, ultimately the loan paperwork be done through one of the regional banks?
Yeah, through CDICs, right.
Okay.
I believe they will contact you if you submit the application. I did read some language where you could apply directly to them or different ones, but again, I would suggest that you go in and read through it thoroughly after you've submitted your application, just to see if there's another venue for you to get these loans if you want one.
So we're taking a look at the application, or I guess it's the preliminary process on the website, and it looks pretty straightforward. Sheila, if you'll just go down to the bottom of that, scroll down to the bottom, there's a click through for apply now. You go in, it looks like you just put in some basic information about your business, and then that will trigger a response from one of the banks, correct?
That's it.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is really filling an important niche. You know, a lot of our small businesses are cash strapped. You know, that's been one of the big challenges through this situation, and this sort of targeted loan fund, I believe, will be greatly appreciated by the small business community. So, thank you for doing this. I know you figured out all this and designed all this by yourself. Right?
I find things out the same time you do, quite often after you do.
So again, this is it's $100 million fund statewide, and you know, a certain portion of that is being allocated to Western New York. And again, for the
Right.
small businesses online here, it's something you should definitely take a look at if you're in need of some cash.
Absolutely. Yeah. Certain amount of empathy here. My brother's a small businessman on Long Island, and he's called me several times about unemployment and the PPP and how do I do this. And when this came out, I called him like immediately, and he said he'd already been contacted for the PPP loan, but you know he was, you know, wasn't desperate, but he was really in you know, some dire straits in terms of getting some more money for his business. So I'm really happy to see this become available.
Yeah. Very good. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the reopening process. It appears we're about to enter phase 2 of reopening here in Western New York. Can you provide a little bit of an overview of the sectors that will be reopening?
Sure. So we're, I think, 99% sure we're going to open tomorrow into phase 2. I know the governor kind of left a little wiggle room in the presentation today, so if something unusual pops up while they're doing the analysis, I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. Other than that, though, phase 2 will open tomorrow. Thing to remember, first and foremost, is still no malls, no large gatherings, no gyms or fitness centers, no video lottery or casinos, no movie theaters, and no places of public amusement will be allowed to open at this time. After that, though, real estate is able to open. There's some specific rules around that opening. Viewings, the biggest one is the showings are allowed only with unoccupied or vacant homes. Unoccupied meaning that the owners aren't there at the time that the showing is done. Only one group can go through a showing at a time. So they're asking that realtors stagger their showings to accommodate that rule. Sorry. Essential and phase 2 retail is now able to open. So, you know, your supermarkets will continue to be open, and then other retail stores are now allowed to be open. And then the rules and regulations regarding that opening are online for you to review, and you will need to review them if you're one of the new retail that are going to be open. You'll need to fill out an affirmation and keep it on file, and you know, be prepared to be inspected and then see that you've got your plan in place. And then the part of that affirmation, that if it's done online, goes directly back to New York State, so you will know that you've reviewed those rules. For firms that don't have access to computers, and I know that's nobody we're talking to right now, but if you know of anyone, a small business isn't able to access those forms online, you can have them printed out. And I know, Todd, I think you're one of the agencies that have been doing this for them. Just print out the form, fill it out, and email it or fax it to us. You can do it to our offices, just so there's a record that affirmation was signed and reviewed. Hair and barber shops are going to be open, no waiting rooms. Face coverings have to stay on, so the only thing that can be done is either hair cutting or coloring. Again, any process that can happen. No manicures, no pedicures. So some basic services allowed. Same thing, no waiting rooms available, so you're going to have to be in maybe 1 or 2 people at a time, assuming that the second or third person is going to have that 6-foot social distance maintained. And again, all facial coverings. There were some other specific rules around the grooming. Todd mentioned that there's going to be a record to be able to use for tracing, contact tracing, if any infections occur, and they'll know that you were there. And who else was there? Commercial building management is open. Retail, rental, repair, and cleaning is open. And vehicle sales, leases, and rentals are open. We get everybody? Commercial building management. That's it.
So again, Diego, every business should go in there and view those summary guidelines and then go read through the detailed guidelines. Very important, right? And then at the end of those detailed guidelines, there's a link for that business to go in and affirm that they've reviewed the guidelines and that they're going to, do actually what the guidelines recommend them to do. And then in addition to that, they should make their own plan. And the state's provided some templates to help the businesses develop those. Locally, we've worked with some of our great partners at County Industrial Development Agency, Jamestown Community College, the Visitors Bureau, the Builders Trades, to help facilitate that. There are some best practices on our websites as well. So if some businesses are looking for ideas on how they should handle certain situations, there's some resources there. We also have, a variety of resources locally helping supply PPE. As you may know, the county did a great job. They put together a loan fund. I think most of it or all of it's been expended, but they were able to put together a loan fund to help our local businesses actually acquire some of this PPE, as well as work with Jamestown Community College for some consultation to help with their reopening. But also, companies like Jamestown Plastics turned their production facility into a unique direction to help make face shields. And I also understand they're making some plexiglass separators for point of service locations. So those folks, the Resource Center and Allied Industries, Jamestown Rubber Stamps. So there's a variety of resources locally to help those businesses with some of the PPE requirements. But it's important to remind businesses, again, get on that website, go through that affirmation process, read through the detail, get your plan together. We're also recommending, Diego, that businesses make sure they do some training with their employees. Most of them, that's kind of a straightforward thing to do, but we're also suggesting that the businesses document that training. We think
right. If you go online through those plans, there's the required, and then there's the recommended procedures that you should go through. So if you really want to be gold standard and make sure you can go through all the recommended procedures and processes for your particular business. And I've heard it recommended that maybe you put up your plan and possibly your affirmation somewhere where they can be viewed by the public or any regulatory agency that might stop in. You'll have them ready for them, and you'll be set to go. So that's, there are going to be some gray areas, and we're here to help as much as we can. I just wanted people to know that we've gotten a lot of calls referred to us at the regional office of Empire State Development, and we aren't the arbiter. We'll try to find as much information as we can. We'll try to bring it up to our legal team if need be. But, the information online is the information online. It's our understanding that the health department's going to make the decisions as to whether or not something's been violated, any rules have been violated. And local law enforcement is going to be the one enforcing any of those rules and regulations. So, between the three of us, I think we've done a lot of referring back and forth, but in the end, we're doing I think everybody's doing as much as they can to get you answers as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I know we spent the first couple weeks of this trying to find places like Jamestown Plastic that could get together PPE or build it, and different companies came to us looking to try to produce it. I have one company down in Westchester County that I just referred back to their regional office that wants to make disinfecting kits for maybe later in this process when you're going to have to go through offices and other areas and kind of disinfect the air and space. And, we're working on getting them some assistance to get that going. So it was, for 2 weeks, it was pretty much every day, more than 8 hours a day, trying to find PPE producers and suppliers, and then a lot of time answering questions for the beginning of the process. So they're fewer and fewer, but they're still there, and I think we're getting there.
Yeah, and some of our wineries pivoted as well, and breweries pivoted as well to make hand sanitizer, 5 and 20 Southern Tier. It's a neat thing how the business community has rallied around the needs. Probably a good thing to remind folks too is if they've been open, if they were deemed under that terminology of being essential, they still need to go in and read through the guidelines, go through the affirmation. Many of them put plans together already, but they should still read through the guidelines, make sure their plans are consistent with the state guidelines, and make sure they have that on file. And again, Diego, you made the point that there's no requirement of the businesses to send these plans anywhere, but they should have them on site. They should share them with their employees. They may even want to go as far as posting them someplace visible, correct?
Again, the only thing that needs to be sent is an affirmation from a firm that doesn't have access to a computer to do it online.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if a business is not sure if they can reopen, what's the best way for them to find out? I think there's some tools online.
You can go online, and there's an application that'll take you on the Forward New York site. It'll take you to an application, and you basically will submit what county you're in, and then it'll ask you what your NAICS code is. If you don't know your NAICS code, just fill in whatever kind of business you have on Google or some other search engine, and it'll just say NAICS automobile repair or something like that, and it'll give you what your NAICS code is. You punch that code in, and it will tell you whether or not you're considered to be open, and then it'll take you to what your specific rules and regulations are for the reopening.
Okay, it's pretty straightforward.
Go through that now. Is that what I'm seeing? Right.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Empire State Development and the role of Empire State Development, the services that you provide, and how does Empire State Development interface with the Regional Economic Development Council?
Well, we're their staff effectively. The Regional Economic Development Council does not have its own staff, so we act as their staff. So we review with them the applications for consolidated funding, applications for Regional Economic Development Council funding that's done every year. The obvious question is, are we going to have it this year? We don't know yet. I mean, the reduction in revenues as far as at the state level right now are just really severe. So we don't know, if there's going to be a rebound, if there's going to be federal funds coming in. So at this point, we don't know. They haven't said no yet. Same thing for the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. I know Jamestown and Olean were both winners, and I was hoping at some point in the near future Dunkirk would be a winner. So we're waiting to hear about that as well. But we score those applications. We for DRI, we're part of the team with Department of State and other agencies that helps review the proposed projects for the DRIs and the actual applications to the Council for Downtown Revitalization. And then flipping it around, when we do a project where we offer up either grants or tax credits, the council actually has a vote on whether or not they approve of those allocations, even though they're not part of the regional council funding round. They all have the ability to ask questions and defer on those funding and support them, which is more often than not what happens. One of the local regional council reps will speak up and say, I fully support this project because of A, B, C, and D. And then we have not been told to stop taking applications for assistance through the Economic Development Fund, which is our grant program, which generally looks at a small percentage, not a small percentage, but somewhere between 5 and 20% of total project cost in grant funds. Recently, those funds have been limited to funds that we can reallocate from projects that haven't basically taken their funds or become ineligible to take those funds. And then there's the Excelsior Tax Credit Program, which allows us to give up to 6.85% of total wages salaries for projects that are going to create usually more than 5 jobs in a manufacturer, up to 50 for a distribution company. And those are tax credits. They're refundable tax credits, which means that if you don't have tax liability at the end of the year, you get the credits back in a refund. Or if you don't have enough tax liability to use up those credits, you get that remainder back in a refund. We have a linked deposit program where people can get 1 to 2 points off the interest rate on their loan for small businesses. That's a really simple program. You just have to ask your banker about it if the bank participates, and most banks in Western New York do participate. They will fill out the forms for you. They will send them for review. I haven't seen one rejected yet in 12 years. And you can always just call our office, call me, and we can go through any of these programs that you're interested in.
Good overview, Diego. And just for the sake of some of our listeners, I mean, some of this you and I take for granted in terms of the Regional Economic Development Council. It's been around for what, 12 years now? 10, 12?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. Just to give everybody a little bit of background, I mean, the purpose of forging these Regional Economic Development Councils was to help our larger region really be more strategic in how we approach economic development. And, you know, an enormous amount of work went into that on the part of the team at Empire State Development. And there's a board that oversees that, the council, a mix of private and public and educational representation. And I just wanted to, I guess, put some of that into the context of why the REDs was formed and the very important role that you and Empire State Development played in keeping that process going.
Well, and that's exactly right. I mean, when I started, the Economic Development Fund program was in place, and there were some small, what they called CCAP programs, which was like legislatures and senators being able to fund projects. And I just remember thinking, these are really small amounts of money that are being, and they're not really very impactful. I didn't think so anyways. I was brand new, so some of them probably were very, very helpful. but this idea of putting together a plan of what's the best way to spend the public dollars that are going to be allocated to Western New York, and what do we want our region to look like? That was really the idea. And it's been, it hasn't been perfect. There's been some issues, but I feel like all in all, the size of some of the projects that I saw, and the ability to help local development, community development, if you will, water projects and road projects, and things that generally aren't in the purview of Empire State Development, or weren't in that purview originally. Now we can help out. I mean, things like the Comedy Center we could never have done before the regional council, and even just and other funds were brought in as the process went on of building the center. But I don't think that idea ever would have gotten off the ground if the regional councils hadn't existed. So, and then the idea being the idea of the state putting that kind of money into a project like the Comedy Center.
Yeah, so it sort of moved finances in such a way that it's more strategic versus more purely political at times, right? I mean, there's still going to be politics in the mix, but
I'm sure people would argue that point, and I'm not going to.
You don't want to go there, huh?
Yeah.
Well, the intent has been to move more strategically at some of these.
I can't say shamelessly that I am happy for every dollar that I've brought to Western New York, regardless of what it came here for. It's like that's always been my goal.
Yeah. And as you know, as I see my friend Mark Geis is on here, Chautauqua County, through the Chautauqua Partnership for Economic Growth, has been working very diligently through the support of County Economic Development and the Industrial Development Agency and a larger group of stakeholders to work strategically to tee up, some really important projects. So obviously we really hope there's a CFA process this year, because I think we're going to be very prepared for it, very prepared moving into the future for these opportunities. So thanks for all you've done working on that. Diego, before we wind down here, is there anything else you'd like to touch upon or share in terms of the work of ESD, or maybe any other observations you may have related to the reopening?
No, not really. Just want to reiterate, we're here for you, and as much as we'd like to make some of the decisions that you've called on us to make, we don't have that ability. But we'll still work as hard as we can to get you an answer as soon as possible, if it's possible. But still, and always proud to be a Western New Yorker and see what we've done and where we've gone so far.
We do have a couple questions.
Sure.
There's a question related to guidelines for salons and barbershops. I think we pretty much covered that, and that question came in before you touched on the topic. But for those, again, go to forward.ny.gov, and there's a ton of resources there. And if you need help navigating through anything, you can reach out to any of us. Here's another question. If you have two types of businesses under one roof, a retail store and service/maintenance, do you have to do two different affirmations in each category?
Yes.
Okay.
You do. Yeah.
Straightforward answer.
I mean, it's also to your benefit. Honestly, you don't want to get caught short. You don't want to be doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and someone complains, and then you have to make you have to explain why you're doing something that you don't really have the ability to do under the rules and regs.
We have a comment here. Senator Borrello says, "Thanks for doing a great job helping us in Western New York. This was very informative." And I agree. This was informative. And you do a great job.
Thanks, Senator. Always good to hear from you.
Again, Diego, thank you for your time today and bringing forth these resources and your availability. You've always been very responsive when we have needs, and we really appreciate that. To our audience out there, we will be back here again next week at 3:30. We'll have some businesses with us talking about reopening, sharing some ideas, some strategies they implemented. We'll have some representation from a few different sectors. But I want to thank all of you, for your continued support of the Chamber of Commerce and Manufacturers Association, and the hard work you do day in and day out. And continue, that hard work, and stay safe. We appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.